Alright, so the goal here is we're going to try to do a little bit of stacking. We're going to stack Guardian Druid with the Night Fae ability, Convoke the Spirits, in conjunction with the legendary Lufa infused Embrace. Actually, the tooltip is down in the lower left-hand corner if you want to go ahead and read it. The icon's going to bother me because I'm pretty sure I'm going to call it Lufa anyway, so we're going to change the tooltip over to a Lufa. So Lufa infused Embrace is what we're going to be running here, and here we go. So the reason that I am running with this is that it allows you to get an extra stack of Thrash, and Convoke the Spirits actually will auto-cast a bunch of Druid spells for you, just kind of at random, but the intention is that it casts the things that you're going to prioritize based on the spec or the form that you're currently in. So, knowing all of that, I figured that there's a better chance of when we cast Convoke the Spirits and when we channel Convoke the Spirits that we're actually going to get more Thrash procs, which is actually going to allow us to get it up faster in bigger packs. And with there being a hard target cap now on some of your AoE abilities, like what you're seeing here, you actually have to focus down and make sure that you're maintaining threat and rotating a little bit more than what we've had to do in what is currently live in BFA right now, which is really swipe spamming Thrash to 3 stacks and you're generally good to go. And so we're not really running into, I'd say, the ease of use that we had before, which, you know, is fine. It's just going to force tanks to adjust a little bit in terms of how they're generating threat. So, the Lufa infused legendary that we have here, I'm hoping is going to synergize really, really well with Convoke the Spirits, the Night Fae Covenant ability. The one thing that we do get by going Night Fae is the ability to have yet another movement enhancer as a druid. Not something that we're generally going to use too much, but that comes in the form of Soul Shape. But since this is a larger pack, this is the first time I'm going to go ahead and use Convoke the Spirits. So I've got my 3-second channel, where I just hit a bunch of things really hard, and I pretty much have aggro on just about everything here, as I stand in bad and set a bad example. But you kind of get the gist. And it's also allowing me to have some pretty good throughput. I actually put up another video where I tested the overall damage throughput of the Venthyr ability, and it gives you a 20-second buff for those of you who don't know. And what I was finding is that I was still averaging right around 1k in terms of my damage done, even on large AoE packs. And so that is actually, you know, looking less appealing, especially now as I look at our first larger pack where I'm using Convoke the Spirits. Now, the cooldown is exactly the same. You've got 3 minutes for Convoke the Spirits. You've got 3 minutes for the Venthyr ability. And so overall, right now, just very initially early on, feedback is that this ability seems to be much better, and looks like I missed something. That's okay, we'll bring these back. Didn't see that little guy. Get a demoralizing roar up here. I'm gonna get Berserk up too. Help the healer out a little bit. So very, very early impressions is Convoke the Spirits, which already seems like Night Fae is kind of the obvious place for any and all druids. Guardian, at least, from a throughput perspective, what it offers in terms of overall damage is what I mean by throughput. But also you're going to get a couple of healing spells cast as well, so something to keep in mind. Not going to do any CC at all. We're just sitting in heroic. This is not a mythic or anything like that, so can be a little careless. And I ultimately want to be able to push to see what the druid's doing and how it feels. You can see I'm actually dropping aggro despite the fact that I am constantly casting unless I'm rotating around and tapping targets. Kind of the way it used to be before we had the target cap removed, and now that it's coming back, that's something that we're just going to have to actively make sure that we're doing. We've got these two big guys, and then we've got the boss. Just go ahead and get a Moonfire up on both. And I'm going to save Convoke the Spirits for the boss, just because there's two of them. Get out of that crap. And we're in pretty good shape overall. I'm going to hop myself up. Again, might as well help the healer as much as possible. And let's go. Grab my initial aggro here, and now I'm going to convoke the spirits. And this is a channel. I can move while channeling it, which is really nice. I was very worried when I saw it was a channel that it was going to be something that you had to just sit there and quite frankly, face tank. Which it's nice that you don't have to worry about that. And that's probably an error, maybe? No. I think I was able to stun the boss, or at least I thought I saw the debuff. Maybe not. Maybe I'm crazy. Overall, my damage is holding pretty steady. I'm pleasantly surprised about that. Whenever I use Convoke the Spirits. Just make sure it's tracking the current segment. It is. The other thing that the this legendary effect does is it increases the range of Thrash as well. Alright, so this is where this dungeon gets a little trippy. The last time I ran this, it actually glitched out and wouldn't let us move through the mist here. So hopefully we don't run into that again.
Target something first.
Let me go ahead and get my panel opened up here. Alright, so this is just one of these things. It's not like the other, so you gotta look at all the symbols, and then if you go through the wrong portal, that happens. So that's a flower, that's a leaf, and we're having some bad luck. Someone is getting a little antsy. There we go. I'm gonna pop the Zerk here, which again is baseline. It's not anything that you have to spec into, which is very, very nice. And to have that on demand is great. Be able to see this. So that's the flower, and that's obviously wrong, so we're looking for leaves, I believe. So it should be this guy. Yep. Get a roar out. We have a boss coming up, but I'm probably not going to do Convoke the Spirits on the boss, just because it has a little bit more value in some of these larger packs. at least at the item level that the group's at, and with how much I'm spiking in damage. So we're looking for leaves. Should be this guy. Yep.
I don't have a target.
The other thing too is the synergy with Barkskin and Brambles is still incredibly strong and is a good chunk of healing. But overall, getting 4 stacks of Thrash up feels pretty good. Once that happens, there's really no way you're going to drop aggro for the most part, unless you're just not hitting them after that. Looking for another leaf. Flower. Leaf. There we go.
Don't get lost.
And this is where it got a little glitchy before. It wouldn't let us pass no matter which way we went, so I'm hoping they fixed the dungeon. Only one way to find out. There we go, there's the leaf.
Don't get lost.
Might have swapped on us. Let's see. Yep, it swapped on us. I believe the other one is a leaf. Here. So here we go.
Almost there.
Swap back to the flower. So I'm going to use Convoke here again, just on full, in conjunction with Berserk, just to get the output of it. Really, really nice. I got 4 Thrashes up right away on just about everything. I'm just going to eat this, even though I'm rooted. I don't want to shift out. Interrupt it though. We're in good shape. We should be coming up to the boss. I believe it should be in the next room. So there's our leaf. We got another leaf. So we're going in here.
You did it. Good job.
And it's intended to be a bit of a maze, but it's actually pretty fun, this guessing game, which really isn't much of a guessing game once you figure out the patterns. I'm getting hit. The Barkskin up. Roar. I'm purposely not shifting out because just with that many hitting me, I would have gone down right away. So it's easier for me to stay in. I can shift out and help the healer whenever I can, but the item level that they give you to start with on these cookie cutter characters is literally just enough to do the leveling dungeons, and that's it. We got a flower, we got a leaf, we got a flower, so we're going the leaf. And this should take us to the boss. Here we go. So this boss follows pretty much the same mechanic that you saw as we cleared through here. It's the guessing game. You have to figure out which one is the real one. Kind of like Skitra, only without all the marking. I'm going to hit Convoke again. As you can see, it does quite a bit of healing. Cast at least, I believe, 2 healing spells. I focused on that, got disoriented. Alright, so now we have to figure out which one doesn't belong. So we got 2 flowers, a leaf, and a leaf. This flower, though, has a circle around it, so this is the right one. Okay, guessing game's going up again. We've got stuff with circles and one without. so that one's relatively easy. Some of them are harder than others. Uh-oh. This dungeon's been a little glitchy. You might have to redo it. Ah. What a bummer. We're gonna have to redo it.
I have many wares.
We're gonna have
There we
so
go.
much fun.
I'm gonna first look right away, get my 4 stacks up. And the other thing too that this does that the Venthyr one does not is that it does not penalize you if you happen to pop it and you're not able to do any casting, or if, like, for example, the boss disappears and you got a 1.5 second delay. That's obviously a problem, because if you go Venthyr, I shouldn't hit that fox, by the way. If you go Venthyr, it's going to penalize you and start draining your health right away. Okay, we're on the leaf. So there's no negative side effect of going with Night Fae, especially with a Druid. Venthyr is more of a glass cannon approach in terms of just pure output. But I can tell you, having run dungeons out back to back, one as Venthyr and the other as Night Fae on the Druid, it's starting to be pretty obvious. We got flower, leaf. Flower with a circle around it. It's starting to be pretty obvious that that Night Fae is not only obvious thematically for a Druid, or at least a Guardian Druid, but also just the obvious choice in terms of the Covenant ability. Okay, so hopefully she doesn't reset here. Oh, she got it off before she went down. Okay. Flower, circles, and no circles. And she's done. There's actually one boss left. You're only right now, I believe, able to loot the first two, or at least that's how it was. Or they shortened it. There was a third that you were able to jump down to, so we'll see. Because when I queued, it said there was only 2 bosses, but I know there's 3. There we go.
It doesn't look right at all.
Inside rivers as the growing peace, balance must be restored.
So, to just kind of start going down the checklist, how does the Covenant ability feel? It feels very natural. It makes a lot of sense, like I said, thematically. And overall, it just is really nice from a Guardian Druid perspective to be able to snag aggro on just trash mobs right away. As far as, like for bigger pulls, I mean, as far as the legendary and the ability to kind of stack what you're about to see here, which is just a bunch of thrashes on multiple targets without having to do anything other than just channel here. That's really nice, especially given the fact that they have limited the number of targets that you can actually hit. The other thing too is that this may actually be more of a dungeon legendary. You may not have the need to stack 4 thrashes for anything outside of dungeon, but for these 2 things, if you're into Mythic Plus, this may be one of the first ones you want to chase down simply for that reason. Now, there are other legendaries that make sense, some that help with pure mitigation and others that help with pure throughput of your overall damage. They may not be the first ones, just because everyone's going to be in this stage of gearing up at the start of the expansion, and that includes your healers too, so you're not going to be able to just think about yourself as a tank, so this may be one of the first ones you end up chasing down and getting the max for, just because Mythic Plus is a great source of gear, especially early on in a new expansion. These are some larger pulls. So the only drawback that I have is that you're dealing with a 3-minute cooldown on this ability. Other than that, it fits in really, really nicely with the rest of your skills. Hard to complain. Got a couple more of these left, and then just down here's the boss. You can see, though, the effects of having this legendary in place as opposed to one I was running earlier. Thrash is just always at the top, whereas Melee or Moonfire was at the top before on a pull-to-pull basis. Bark Skin right away to get that Bramble synergy. And then again, you got to manually target. You can't just lazy AoE target anymore, just to make sure you're getting aggro and keeping aggro once you have it. I'm going to use Convoke here again. Once I get settled, get them all together. There we go. Looks like I got 2 Thrashes out there. Do that, and I didn't let it finish channeling. Cast, get a stun out. Okay, last boss. And I've got this on cooldown perfectly fine. I have Berserk up, so I did that on purpose.
Lower of knowledge. A feast for the dead.
So we'll knock this guy out. I'll Berserk right away, and then we'll do some closing thoughts on just kind of this combination, and ultimately how the legendary feels on top of the Covenant ability. Get some ads here. You gotta interrupt that. Doesn't look like we're getting ads. Getting ads yesterday. There we go. There's the ads. So these do focus on a single target, so they have to be killed before, or kited, one of the two. And it makes it pretty hard when they focus on target and you don't have anyone else hitting them. But they won't stop chasing. You gotta kill them. Again, all this subject to change, but it's the way the dungeons are working right now. Okay. So, overall, let me go ahead and actually pull up the item here. The Lufa Infused Embrace. I've got Haste and Mastery on it right now. Thrash has a 20% increased damage throughput. That is very obvious, given the fact that if we look over the course of the dungeon, Thrash was the #1 damage done on my part. So came out on top as it should, especially with this legendary. And then 30% increased radius, so it helps you get aggro on the targets that are coming in, which is really, really nice. And then that stacking on top of Convoke the Spirits, which allows you to call upon the Night Fae for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid flurry of 12 druid spells, where it's going to prioritize the spec that you're in. and cast those spells first. You'll get a couple Moonfires, you'll get a Rejuve every now and then. But for the most part, it's going to cast whatever form you're in and prioritize that. You can move around, which is great. So I don't have to stand still. It just starts casting for me, which is phenomenal. You combine these two things together, and I think this is a pretty lethal combination for dungeoning early on, getting that gear that you need. May or may not pan out as a raid legendary, but overall, the Covenant ability for sure feels like you're just right at home. It fits in perfectly as a druid, especially, well, in this particular instance, as a Guardian Druid. It feels really, really nice. And the Smart Cast is something that we obviously all have to worry about, and how intelligent is the AI built into this. But it seems pretty darn smart, and it's prioritizing the right spells for the class and for the situation, which is really nice. I will also point out and say that in the last dungeon I did as a Venthyr, my overall damage output was about 900. And here I'm over 1k. I'm at 1.1k for the entirety of the dungeon, despite the fact that I still am dealing with a spell that has a 3-minute cooldown. So that's an apples to apples comparison, is a 3-minute cooldown with the Venthyr ability and a 3-minute cooldown with the Night Fae ability. And I'm still getting a little bit more throughput with Night Fae. So all in all, feels really, really good. Thanks for tuning in.